Have you ever had a moment that split your life into two distinct parts? A before and an after. For me, that moment wasn't a car crash or a lottery win. It was the sound of my own key turning in my own front door. I was supposed to be thousands of miles away, sipping a cocktail on a beach in Hawaii. Instead, I was standing in the silent hallway of my Chicago apartment, about to discover a secret that would burn my entire world to the ground. This story is about that fire and what it's like to rise from the ashes. My life before that moment looked perfect from the outside. I was Chloe, a successful financial director in a downtown firm. My husband Mark was a senior partner at his company, 12 years my senior, charismatic and powerful. We met when he was my boss. He was married then, with 2 sons. But he pursued me with a relentless passion that felt like a fairy tale. My friends, especially my best friend Jess, warned me. "A man who leaves his family for you will leave you for someone else," she'd said. I dismissed it as cynicism. Our life was a whirlwind of gallery openings, dinners in the West Loop, and weekend trips. But after 3 years, the whirlwind had settled into a quiet, predictable routine. The passion cooled into comfort, and my deepest desire to start a family was always met with Mark's classic line, "Not yet, honey, the timing isn't right." Little did I know, the timing was perfect, just not for me. The Hawaii trip was my idea, a last-ditch effort to reconnect, disguised as a birthday present for me. I wanted the sun, the sea, and the man I married. Mark agreed, surprisingly, without a fight. The night before our flight, he came home late, smelling of whiskey and stress. He draped his arm around me, his voice low and strained. "Chloe, honey, I have some terrible news." I felt my stomach drop. An emergency board meeting was just called. "It's a huge deal. I can't miss it. You have to go ahead without me. I promise I'll catch the first flight out in 2 days and meet you there." His excuse was flawless, backed by the corporate jargon I knew so well. I tried to hide my crushing disappointment, forcing a smile as I nodded. "Of course, work is work. I'll see you in 48 hours. But a cold seed of doubt had been planted. Landing in Maui alone was surreal. The air, thick with the sweet scent of plumeria and salt, felt like a paradise meant for 2. The resort was breathtaking, a sprawling oasis of turquoise pools and lush gardens leading to a perfect crescent of white sand. A porter led me to our suite, which had a panoramic view of the Pacific Ocean. Champagne was chilling in an ice bucket next to a note that read, "For Mr. and Mrs. Evans." The irony was a bitter pill to swallow. I stood on the balcony watching the sunset paint the sky in strokes of orange and violet, feeling profoundly lonely. This grand, romantic gesture, this beautiful place, felt hollow without him. It was a perfectly wrapped gift, with nothing inside. I was a solo act in a play written for a duet, and the silence in the room was deafening. The next day, I forced myself out of the suite and onto the beach, determined not to waste the trip. I found a lounge chair under a palm tree and tried to lose myself in a novel, but the words just blurred together. My gaze drifted to the shoreline, where a man was laughing as he chased a little girl with a bright pink bucket. She couldn't have been more than 5 or 6, her giggles carrying on the breeze. As she ran from a wave, she stumbled and fell right near my chair, her sandcastle treasures scattering. I instinctively rushed over to help. "Are you okay, sweetie?" I asked, helping her sit up. The man jogged over, his face etched with concern. "Lily, I told you to watch where you're going." He looked at me, his eyes a warm, apologetic hazel. "I am so sorry about that. Are you all right?" His smile was genuine and disarming, a stark contrast to the emptiness I'd been feeling all morning. His name was Ethan, and the little girl was his daughter Lily. They were also from Chicago, a coincidence that felt both strange and comforting so far from home. "We come here every year," he explained, as we rebuilt Lily's sandcastle together. "It was my late wife's favourite place." He said it so calmly, a statement of fact tinged with a gentle sadness that made my heart ache for him. There was no pretense, no awkwardness, just an open honesty that I found incredibly rare. We spent the rest of the afternoon talking while Lily played nearby. He was a family law attorney, and he spoke about his work with a quiet passion. He asked about my life, and for the first time in a long time, I felt someone was genuinely listening, not just waiting for their turn to speak. That evening, Ethan invited me to have dinner with him and Lily at one of the resort's casual beachfront restaurants. I hesitated for a moment, the thought of Mark's imminent arrival making me feel a pang of guilt. But the prospect of another solitary meal in my suite was unbearable. "I'd love that," I replied. The dinner was easy and light. Lily chatted excitedly about the dolphins she saw, and Ethan and I talked like old friends. He had a way of making you feel completely at ease, a warmth that radiated from him. I found myself laughing, a real, genuine laugh that I hadn't realised I'd been missing. It was startling to feel so connected to a stranger, to share a simple meal, and feel more seen than I had in years of lavish dinners with my own husband. As we walked back along the torchlit path to our rooms, Lily was asleep in Ethan's arms. The sound of the waves crashing on the shore was a soothing rhythm in the quiet night. "Thank you for tonight," I said softly. "I really needed that." He stopped and looked at me, his expression serious. "I should be thanking you. It's been a long time since I've had dinner with a woman who wasn't trying to set me up with her cousin." We both smiled. "Your husband is a lucky man," he added, his gaze unwavering. "He must be missing you like crazy." The words hung in the air, a simple compliment that felt incredibly complex. "I hope so," I whispered, feeling a sudden sharp pang of uncertainty about the man who was supposed to be on a plane, flying to meet me. The next day, the day Mark was supposed to arrive, I spent the morning with Ethan and Lily by the pool. The anxiety about Mark's flight was a low hum beneath the surface, but the easy company was a welcome distraction. My phone finally buzzed around noon. It was a text from Mark, not a call. "Deal is more complicated than I thought. Flight delayed another day. So sorry, baby. Make it up to you, I promise." The message was clipped, impersonal. The seed of doubt from 2 days ago began to sprout, its roots twisting in my gut. Why wouldn't he call? Another day? It felt flimsy, a poorly constructed excuse. I typed back a simple, "Okay," my fingers feeling numb. I looked over at Ethan, who was patiently showing Lily how to float on her back, and a wave of confusion washed over me. I felt more connected to this man I'd known for 24 hours than the one I'd been married to for 3 years. A new feeling began to take hold, suspicion. It was an ugly, creeping sensation that I tried to push away. Mark was a dedicated professional. He worked hard, but this felt different. It was the detached text instead of a call, the vague excuse, the ease with which he was letting this precious time together slip away. My mind started replaying small, insignificant moments from the past few months, late nights at the office, hushed phone calls he'd end when I walked into the room, a new cologne I didn't recognise. I had dismissed them all as products of a high-stress job. Now they were pieces of a puzzle I was terrified to solve. I suddenly felt a desperate, urgent need to go home. Not to surprise him with a romantic gesture, but to surprise him with the truth. That evening, I found Ethan on the beach watching the sunset alone, while Lily was at the resort's kids' club. "I'm leaving," I said, the words coming out more abruptly than I intended. He turned, his expression a mixture of surprise and concern. "Is everything okay?" I couldn't bring myself to tell him my fears, the ugly suspicions churning inside me. It felt too disloyal, too dramatic. "There's an emergency at work," I lied, hating the taste of the words. "I have to fly back tonight." He searched my face, and I knew he didn't quite believe me, but he was too polite to question it. "Chloe, I know we just met, but if you ever need anything, a friend or a lawyer," he said with a half smile, "please call." He handed me his business card. The simple piece of paper felt incredibly heavy in my hand, like a lifeline I didn't know I needed. The red-eye flight from Maui to Chicago was a blur of recycled air and quiet contemplation. The plane was dark, most passengers asleep, but my mind was racing. I replayed every conversation with Mark, every promise, every excuse. Was I being paranoid? Was I about to blow up my marriage over a work crisis and a gut feeling? For a moment, I considered turning back. Maybe I should just stay, wait for him, and pretend everything was fine. But I couldn't shake the image of his impersonal text message or the easy, genuine connection I'd felt with Ethan. It was that contrast that solidified my resolve. I needed to know the truth no matter how much it might hurt. I clutched Ethan's business card in my pocket, the sharp corner digging into my palm, a strange comfort in the darkness. I landed at O'Hare in the early morning haze and took a taxi straight to our Lincoln Park apartment. The city was just waking up, the sky a pale hazy grey. During the ride, a strange sense of calm settled over me. I had a plan. I would walk in, and he would be there, asleep in our bed, alone. He would be shocked to see me, and I would feel foolish and relieved. We would laugh about my crazy paranoia, and he would hold me, and everything would be okay. I rehearsed the scene in my head, clinging to it like a prayer. The taxi pulled up to our brownstone. "Do you want me to wait?" the driver asked. "No, thank you," I said, my voice steady. "I'm home." I walked up the steps, the key in my hand feeling cold and foreign. I slipped the key into the lock and turned it as quietly as I could. The heavy oak door swung inward without a sound. The first thing I saw stopped my breath. A pair of black stilettos, not mine, were kicked haphazardly by the entryway table. Next to them, a silk scarf I'd never seen before was draped over the banister. A man's dress shirt, Mark's, lay crumpled on the floor. My heart began to hammer against my ribs, a frantic, panicked drumbeat. The apartment was silent, but it was a heavy, charged silence. I could smell the faint, cloying scent of a woman's perfume, mingling with the familiar smell of our home. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to turn around, to walk out, and pretend I had never seen this. But my feet were frozen to the floor. I forced myself to move, taking slow, deliberate steps down the hallway toward our bedroom. Each step was an eternity. My breath was caught in my throat, and I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. The bedroom door was slightly ajar. Through the crack, I could hear them, soft whispers, followed by a low, feminine laugh that was not my own. It was the most intimate, devastating sound I had ever heard. In that instant, my carefully constructed world didn't just crack. It shattered into a million pieces. The betrayal was so profound, so absolute. It felt like a physical blow. The air was stolen from my lungs. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't paranoia. This was my reality. I don't know what gave me the strength to do it, but I pushed the door open. The scene before me will be forever burned into my memory. Mark, my husband, was in our bed, entangled with a woman with fiery red hair. They didn't see me at first. They were in their own world, a world built on my trust and his lies. I just stood there in the doorway, my suitcase still in my hand, the aloha tag mocking me. Finally, I cleared my throat. It was a small, pathetic sound, but it cut through the room like a gunshot. Mark's head whipped around. The colour drained from his face, his eyes widening in pure, unadulterated shock. "Chloe!" he stammered, scrambling for the sheets. "What? What are you doing here?" The woman beside him sat up, pulling the duvet up to her chin with a defiant glare. She looked to be in her late 30s, with sharp features and a cold expression. "I came home early," I said, my voice miraculously steady. "I guess the deal in Hawaii wasn't the only thing that got complicated." The sarcasm dripped from my words like venom. Mark stumbled out of bed, wrapping a sheet around his waist. "Chloe, listen. This isn't what it looks like. Let me explain." His voice was a desperate, pleading whisper. "Explain?" I let out a sharp, humourless laugh. "What is there to explain, Mark? That your emergency board meeting has red hair and is currently in my bed. Please, enlighten me." My entire body was trembling, a storm of rage and heartbreak raging inside me. Then the woman spoke, her voice laced with contempt. "Oh, give it up, Mark. She knows." She looked directly at me, a cruel smirk on her lips. "You really shouldn't be so surprised. This has been going on for over a year." A year. The word hit me like a physical punch. A full year of lies, a year of late nights, hushed phone calls, and feigned stress. It wasn't just a mistake or a one-night stand. It was a double life. He had built an entire relationship behind my back, in my home, in my bed. I looked at Mark, searching for any sign of remorse, any flicker of the man I thought I knew, but all I saw was a cornered animal, a pathetic coward. I felt nothing but disgust. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. A strange, glacial calm settled over me. "Get out," I said, my voice dangerously low. "Both of you, now." The woman gathered her clothes with an air of practiced nonchalance, not even bothering to look at me again as she walked out. Mark just stood there stammering apologies. "Chloe, please, we can talk about this. Don't throw away everything we have." I just stared at him. "We have nothing," I said, each word a shard of ice. "You threw it away a long time ago. Pack a bag and leave your key on the table." I turned and walked out of the bedroom, out of the apartment, and into the grey Chicago morning, leaving the ruins of my marriage behind me without a single look back. I walked for hours, my suitcase trailing behind me like a ghost. I ended up at Jess's apartment, my face a mask of stone. When she opened the door, she took one look at me and pulled me into a hug. It was only then, wrapped in the safety of her arms, that the dam broke. I sobbed, gut-wrenching sobs of pain, rage, and humiliation. She didn't say, "I told you so." She just held me, made me tea, and listened as the whole ugly story poured out of me. "What am I going to do?" I whispered, my voice raw. Jess looked at me, her expression fierce. "First," she said, "you're going to stay here. Second, you are going to hire the most ruthless divorce attorney in this city. And third, you are going to remember that you are Chloe and you are a survivor. This is not your end. This is his." The next few days were a blur of legal consultations and painful logistics. I filed for divorce immediately. I had Mark's things packed up and sent to his office. The locks on the apartment were changed. Each action felt like a small victory, a step toward reclaiming my life. One evening, after a particularly draining meeting with my lawyer, I returned to my apartment building. I was exhausted emotionally and physically. As I walked through the underground parking garage toward the elevator, I heard footsteps behind me. I quickened my pace, my heart starting to pound. A figure in a dark hoodie lunged out of the shadows. I felt a sharp, blinding pain at the back of my head, and then everything went black. I woke up to the steady beeping of a machine and the sterile, antiseptic smell of a hospital. A sharp pain throbbed in my head. Jess was asleep in a chair beside my bed, her face pale with worry. When she saw my eyes were open, she rushed to my side. "Chloe! Oh, thank God! You're awake!" She explained what had happened. Someone had attacked me in the garage, hit me over the head, and stolen my purse. I had a severe concussion and had been in and out of consciousness for 2 days. The police had no leads. A random mugging, they said. But as the fog in my brain started to clear, a chilling thought took root. It didn't feel random. It felt targeted. It felt like a warning. A few days later, a visitor I never expected appeared in my hospital room. It was Mark. He looked terrible, haggard, and worn down. He carried a bouquet of cheap gas station flowers that he placed awkwardly on the table. "I heard what happened," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Chloe, I am so sorry." I just stared at him, my silence a wall of ice. "It wasn't a mugging," he continued, his eyes fixed on the floor. "It was my mother. She hired someone to scare you. She found out about the divorce and she lost her mind. She wanted you to drop it, to not take what she calls her son's money." The confession was so monstrous, so beyond anything I could have imagined, that I could only stare at him in stunned silence. He finally looked at me, his eyes filled with a pathetic sort of despair. "I'm leaving, Chloe. I told the police everything about my mother's involvement. They're handling it. The company offered me a transfer to manage the Singapore office. I'm taking it. I'm getting out of here, away from my mother, away from everything." He was running away, just like he always did, running from his first marriage, from our marriage, from the mess his own family had created. "I never deserved you," he said, his voice cracking. "I hope one day you can find it in you to... Well, it doesn't matter. Be happy, Chloe. You deserve that." And with that he turned and left my room and my life for good. I didn't feel sadness or anger. I just felt empty. A chapter had closed, violently and completely. After I was released from the hospital, I felt adrift. My apartment felt haunted by memories. My job felt meaningless. Everything was a reminder of a life that no longer existed. One sleepless night, I was rummaging through the purse I'd been carrying in Hawaii, the one the police had recovered. My fingers brushed against a small, stiff piece of cardstock. I pulled it out. It was Ethan's business card. Ethan Cole, attorney at law. A family lawyer. The irony was not lost on me. I stared at his name, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of something other than pain. It was a tiny spark of hope, a connection to a person who had shown me kindness when my world was about to implode. On impulse, I picked up my phone. My hands were shaking as I dialed the number on the card. A polite receptionist answered. "Cole and Associates, how can I help you?" My voice came out as a squeak. "I'd like to make an appointment with Mr. Cole," I managed to say. "It's a personal matter." She scheduled me for the following afternoon. After I hung up, a wave of panic washed over me. What was I doing? Showing up at his office out of the blue? He probably didn't even remember me. Maybe he thought I was a crazy person who lied about a work emergency and then ghosted him. But the spark of hope refused to be extinguished. I had to know. I had to take one more chance. I spent the next morning trying to make myself look presentable. The concussion had left me with a faint bruise on my temple, a constant reminder of the ugliness I'd been through. I chose a simple blue dress, something professional but soft. Walking into his downtown law office felt like walking into a different world. It was calm, elegant, and quiet. The receptionist offered me a seat and I waited, my heart pounding a nervous rhythm against my ribs. I felt like a teenager on a first date. After what felt like an eternity, the door to his office opened. A client walked out, and then Ethan appeared in the doorway. His eyes scanned the waiting room and landed on me. His professional smile faltered, replaced by an expression of pure, unguarded surprise. "Chloe," he said, his voice filled with disbelief. "What are you doing here?" He invited me into his office, a beautiful space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago River. The air between us was thick with unspoken questions. He gestured for me to sit, but I remained standing. "I owe you an explanation," I began, my voice trembling slightly. And so I told him everything. The lie about the work emergency, the scene at my apartment, the divorce, the attack, the hospital. I laid bare all the ugly, painful details of the past few weeks. I didn't cry. I just stated the facts, my voice flat and exhausted from reliving it all. When I finished, he was silent for a long moment, his face a mask of shock and empathy. He slowly walked around his desk and stood in front of me. "Chloe," he said, his voice soft, "I am so incredibly sorry for what you've been through." He reached out and gently brushed his thumb over the bruise on my temple. "I thought—" He hesitated. "I thought you just weren't interested, that you played me and then disappeared. I was hurt, but I never imagined it was something like this." His honesty was like a balm on my raw nerves. He wasn't judging me. He was understanding me. In his eyes I saw not pity, but a deep, profound compassion that made my own eyes well up with tears. He pulled me into a gentle hug, and I let myself lean against him, feeling a sense of safety I hadn't felt in a very long time. "You are one of the strongest people I have ever met," he whispered into my hair. "You walked through fire and came out the other side." I pulled back slightly to look at him. "I'm not sure about that," I said. "I feel like a complete mess." He smiled, a real, warm smile that reached his eyes. "Then let me help you clean it up," he said. "Let's start with dinner tonight. You, me, and Lily." She asked about the sandcastle lady all the time. The invitation was simple, but it felt like everything. It felt like a new beginning. That night, I moved my things out of my old apartment and into Jess's guest room. A week later, after many dinners and long talks, Ethan asked me to move in with him. It was fast, I knew, but it felt more right than anything in my life ever had. His home was filled with light, laughter, and Lily's artwork taped to the fridge. It felt like a real home. A few months after that, on the same beach in Maui, where we first met, he asked me to marry him. There were no grand gestures, just the quiet sound of the waves and the feeling of his hand in mine. My yes was the easiest word I had ever said. We weren't just two broken people finding solace in each other. We were two souls who had found their counterpart, creating a new, stronger whole. Our wedding was a small, intimate affair in our own backyard in Chicago, surrounded by a handful of close friends and family. Jess was my maid of honor, and Lily was the most beautiful flower girl I had ever seen. On our first anniversary, I found out I was pregnant. The joy was so overwhelming, it brought me to tears. 9 months later, we welcomed twin boys into the world. Our house, once so quiet, was now a chaotic symphony of baby coos, Lily's laughter, and the happy barking of the golden retriever puppy we finally got. Life wasn't perfect, it was messy and loud and exhausting and beautiful. It was everything I had ever wanted, but had stopped believing I could have. The fire had burned down my old life, but from the ashes, something far more real and wonderful had grown. My journey was a painful one. It took a devastating betrayal to shatter the illusion of a perfect life I had built. But in the wreckage, I found myself. I discovered a strength I never knew I possessed, and I learned that true love isn't a whirlwind of passion. It's the quiet, steady presence of someone who sees you, supports you, and builds a life with you, not just next to you. The scars are still there, but they are no longer wounds. They are reminders that even after the deepest burn, it is possible to heal, to grow, and to love again. Thank you so much for watching and sharing this journey with me. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like, subscribe for more content, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had a moment that completely changed the course of your life?